So 1 week removed from Imola, and F1 was at it again for its first double-header of the season, as after a slightly underwhelming Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, F1 was headed to Monaco, which as we all know delivers some of the best racing of the year if your intentions are to be asleep all Sunday. But how do I think Monaco is going to shape up, and more importantly, how does Enzo the dog think it's going to go? Well, let's find out as we get into my predictions for the 2024 Monaco Grand Prix. Starting off then with my quali GOAT for Monaco, and the person I've gone with here is Lando Norris. Now, as we all know, the most important qualifying session of the year is Monaco, and someone that's consistently known for putting in those good qualifying performances is Lando. And so I feel like in Monaco, the sort of run that he's been on, the form he's been showing, this really could be one of those times where he pulls it out of the bag in quali. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's going to be a landslide, and Max is always going to be up there. However, for this one, I do think Lando could just get it. Next up then, we flip over to qualifying fail, and I've gone with Sergio Perez. Throughout his entire time in the Red Bull, qualifying has always been Sergio's downfall, and at a place where Monaco, where it really matters, I could see him not doing so well. Whereas Lando was coming in with the good form, Sergio's coming in with the less than ideal form. And so I feel like in Monaco, one little mistake really could cost him. That's exactly what we saw happen last year, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen again. Next up, we get to sneaky good for the race on Sunday, and the person I've gone with here is Nico Hülkenberg. As we all know with Monaco, it does depend heavily on how your qualifying goes, and that's really been Nico's strong suit this year. He's qualified extremely well, and so at a race like Monaco, I feel like that translates extremely well then onto the Sunday. Do I think it's going to be exceedingly good, maybe even like top 6? Probably not. However, good enough to get this sort of sneaky good from me, I think it could be. Then we get to sneaky bad, and someone who's just maybe a little bit disappointing, and the person I've gone for is Daniel Ricciardo. Generally this year he's been quite far behind his teammate Tsunoda, plus as we say a track like Monaco you've really got to put it together in qualifying, and that's just not quite been the case so far. So I feel like for Daniel this could be a weekend where things don't quite come together. As to do well at Monaco, you've really got to be in tune with your car and driving at a high standard, and Daniel's just not quite been showing that at the moment. Getting to my driver of the day, and for the first time I've put someone in here twice, it's going to be Lando. As if he qualifies well on the Sunday, for him, realistically that's P2 or P1, which then means on Sunday, in theory, it should be P2 or P1, and I feel like that would be enough to earn him driver of the day. Honestly, the form he's been showing, I genuinely could see him winning this race. Then we get on to my fail of the day, and the person I've gone for is Lance Stroll. I put him here last time out in Imola, and as it turned out, he actually did alright. However, for Lance, again, it comes down to the fact that qualifying isn't great. You look at mistakes that can be made, a little bit of one and you're in the barrier, and I feel like he's someone that really could happen to. So for my fail of the day, that's why I've gone with Lance Stroll. Finally then, we move on to the podium, and it seems like this is just where he finishes now. I've gone with Charles Leclerc in third. To be honest, this is already quite optimistic for Charles, given that in Monaco things always seem to go wrong for him. However, he's been riding a decent run of form, and I feel like of all the drivers on the grid, realistically it's Verstappen and Norris that would probably be just ahead of him. Then in second place, I've gone with Max Verstappen. As I mentioned, I've got Norris down to have a good qualifying and driver of the day, which is why I feel like he could be in this first place. Plus, it's more interesting to put someone else other than Max in this P1 prediction, which of course is going to Lando. Moving on then, we get to Enzo's predictions, starting off with how he's done and how I've done predicting last week's race in Imola. As you can see, not quite as close as the last few have been, as I came out ahead 26-21, but still a decent showing from the Labrador. This does mean that on the season, I'm now up 5-2 and extending that lead on Enzo. Getting to Monaco, and after a higher position for Alonso last week, he's back down the end and in P20. Ahead of him, it's Logan Sargent in P19, with Valtteri Bottas just ahead in 18th. Esteban Ocon is 17th, with Sergio Perez having a bad race down in 16th. Zhou Guanyu in 15th, with Nico Hülkenberg in 14th, Pierre Gasly leading the Alpines in 13th, Daniel Ricciardo in 12th, and Alex Albon finishing out the bottom half of drivers. Getting into the top 10 and picking up 1 point in the Monaco Grand Prix is going to be Kevin Magnussen. To be fair, if we're looking for someone to demonstrate some defensive driving in a track like Monaco, Kevin's definitely someone that could pull it off. Getting to P9, it's going to be Oscar Piastri. After a decent showing the last couple of races and a P4 finish in Imola, it's down the order a little bit according to Enzo. Getting into 8th, and it's been the best of the rest driver this year, it's going to be Yuki Tsunoda from the RB team. Then into 7th, and it's going to be the other Aston Martin, is Lance Stroll. I don't think a single person watching the race this weekend will have Lance this high, but apparently according to Enzo, that is what's going to happen. Then in P6, we have the first of the Mercedes drivers, and it's going to be Lewis Hamilton. P6 was where he finished last time out in Imola, so potentially back-to-back 6th places for him, who knows. Into the top 5, and in 5th place, it's Lando Norris. Clearly Enzo not quite as optimistic on Lando as I've been. Think in order for this to happen, something probably has to go slightly wrong in qualifying, maybe it's a little bit underwhelming, and then that would translate onto the race on Sunday. Moving into 4th, and Enzo's going with the other Mercedes driver as he picks up George Russell to put into this spot. For George, a P4 finish would be a great result, especially considering last time he was down in P7, and it would also show Mercedes generally trending towards the front, though getting up into that P1, 2, 3 podium places still seems quite a way away. Moving on to the podium now, and we're left with Max Verstappen and the 2 Ferraris, with Charles Leclerc up on the front row of the pyramid for the first time. However, in this case it's not good, as it means that Leclerc gets selected for P3. Funnily enough, Enzo and I both putting Charles in 3rd place, thinking he's going to have a decent one, but not quite good enough because, as we all know, the curse of Charles Leclerc at Monaco does exist. That just leaves Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz for Enzo to choose between, and he's gone with the Spaniard Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari to come home in P2. Sainz hasn't quite been on the level he was at the start of the year, but a good qualifying could solve all of that, and at a place like Monaco it really does matter. That of course means that there's one driver left to pick, which is Max Verstappen, and even though Enzo decides to make it as difficult for himself as he can to put Max in this P1, he does eventually decide to put him there. To be fair, it's a pretty safe bet, and maybe that's what Enzo's going for, just trying to pick up as many points as he can to try and claw himself back in our standings. So there you have both of our predictions for the Monaco Grand Prix, with Enzo on the left and mine on the right. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and whereabouts you'd be predicting everyone to finish for Monaco. Anyways, that is all for now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, make sure to give it a thumbs up, get yourself subscribed to the channel, and until next time, take care.